Welcome to the classes of epidemiology. We have been talking since long about general epidemiology, which is the base or backbone of the preventive and social medicine. We talked about the descriptive epidemiology, and now we shall be talking about analytic epidemiological in details. We have spared one total session in the last time for the case control studies. Case control study is very easy and frequently done. That's why we shall devote little more time for that. Another type is cohort study. In case control study, you must be remembering that we are dealing with the cases, those who are already having the disease or the condition. We select them. We do have the diagnostic criteria how to select them. Once we have selected them, we will also match with the possibility of eligibility, whether we are selecting new cases or old cases, whatever it is. But diagnostic criteria and eligibility once decided, we shall go for the controls. Controls are the individuals who are as good as or in as variables matching with the cases, except that they do not have the disease, except that they do not have that particular disease which we have as a diagnostic criteria. For example, if you are taking oral cancer, the controls do not have oral cancer, only cases have that. One. Second, controls and cases will be matched for everything like age, sex, marital status, habits, other, but not for the tobacco chewing, the particular factor which we have to study. And that's why cases and controls have to be matched appropriately. Once this is done, then we should go for the measurement of that. Once we have matched it, cases are matched, controls are matched. For each case, one, two, or more controls, whatever is available, we have taken, and then we have studied also. We got the details about that, and particularly the factor which was under the study, like the tobacco chewing. We asked in details how much tobacco, since long, since how long, how frequently, since how many years, etc. etc. Once the data is collected, then we will go for the analysis. Analysis will give us two specific factors. One is known as exposure rate. Exposure means those who have been the cases and those who are not the cases. Okay, suppose cases who are having the exposure, they are known as A, and controls who are having exposure, they are known as B. Okay, A, B, two cells in one row. A, B. A, cases who do not have exposure, oral cancer, who have the tobacco chewing. A. And two, those who do not have cancers but have tobacco chewing. B. Next one, C and D. C means those who do not have the tobacco chewing and yet have cancer. And D, those who do not have the tobacco chewing and do not have the cancer. A, B, C, D. These are the four cells which we decide. A, B, C, D. Okay. Now, A divided by A plus C. A divided by A plus C means those who are exposed and have become the cases. Those who have been exposed and have become the cases. A divided by the total number of cases, whether they are exposed or not, total number of cases. Similarly, B divided by B plus D means those who are not the cases, and out of that, those who have been exposed, exposed but do not become the cases, divided by all those who do not have that disease. B divided by B plus D. I have specifically prepared a PowerPoint presentation to explain it further. You may go through that. Now, A upon A plus C, if divided by B upon B plus C, I mean that those who are exposed and have become cases and those who have been controls, they are compared with each other in a ratio. This is known as an exposure rate. Exposure rate. What was the importance of the exposure in keeping them as cases or keeping them as controls? Naturally, if the role of exposure for keeping the cases will be there, it will be a very high figure, which is known as the exposure rate. And exposure rate is always calculated whether it is more or less based on the statistics. Now, there are two types of statistical tests. If we are using the discrete figures, like say 1, 2, 3, 4, as the persons can be counted, then the test will be leading to proportions or ratios. Okay, there we will be using a test which you may be learning about, and that's a standard error of the difference between two proportions. In short, it is known as SCP1 minus P2. Another test which is applied is chi-square. Please remember it till you understand the statistics perfectly. SCP1 minus P2, okay, or chi-square. These two tests are for those figures which are discrete, and some figures are continuous, like say blood pressure. Blood pressure is not only 1.2 or 100, 201. This may be in between also. There is a continuous range of the blood pressure. In that case, we need to identify the, rather say, continuous figures. The test is known as the standard error between two means, SE x1 bar minus x2 bar. Another test in the similar type is known as t-test. So these are the different tests which we apply and try to find out that whether the role of the causative factor or the alleged factor is more in the cases or more in the controls. This is exposure rate identified. Generally in statistics, whenever the p probability is identified and if it is less than 0.05, that means only 5 persons out of 100 will get it by chance. Otherwise, it will be obviously 95 will have some reason, some cause, some association with that, and it is known as significant. When p is less than 0.01 or 0.1, it is much more 0.01, it is much more significant, because out of 100, only one case will become by chance. That's why p is also important. Again, I repeat, we are measuring exposure rate. What is the role of exposure in creating cases or in keeping controls? The exposure rate will be divided for the cases and controls, and that division, whatever figure is given, will be compared with the statistical test. In discrete figures, the statistical test will be SCP1 minus P2 or chi-square. In continuous figures, it will be SC x1 bar minus x2 bar or t-test. Is it? The second measurement which we are doing is risk evaluation. How much risky the exposure is. And risk evaluation is also known as relative risk. But only condition here is we are comparing incidence in the exposed divided by incidence in the non-exposed. Now, as per formula, we should find out the incidence. And in cross-section, in the case control study, we do not find incidence. We are finding at a given point of time. This is not a prolonged study. In a longitudinal study, you can have incidence, but here incidence is not a possibility. So what to do? But incidentally, it happens that in the rare conditions, relatively, the prevalence is very near to the incidence, because these are rare cases. They do not occur much more. And that's why incidence can also be supposed to be very near to the prevalence. That's why, though we have not measured incidence, we can approximate it as is A upon A plus B, that was to be identified for the relative risk, A upon A plus B, divided by C upon C plus D. Do you remember? A is actually the number of cases with exposure. C is number of controls, number of cases without exposure. Once you divide A upon A plus B, that means all those who are exposed. Out of that, how many have become cases? Another is C divided by C plus D, that means all those not exposed. Out of them, how many have become the cases? See, this comparison is relative risk. It tells us that how much is the role of the exposure to a given factor leads to become a case. If it is more, it is probably more likely that it causes the disease, even though it does not suggest a cause, but there is a relationship which is quite significant. But if you are not taking incidence, you will have to change formula. Do not worry about this formula A, B, C, D, etc. because I have already put up a PowerPoint presentation where you find that formula and you will try to understand it how it is. Now in the formula, incidence was paid. Now we do not have incidence. That's why the formula will change, like say A upon A plus B will change as A upon B. We presume that the number of cases will be very rare, divided by C upon D. Again, here we take that those persons who are actually exposed, who are actually becoming cases are rare. So C and A are showing the cases. So A upon B and C upon D, these are to be divided. When we divide in mathematics, what happens? A upon B divided by C upon D means AD upon BC. That will be cross multiplication, closely related to relative risk. This is known as odds ratio. Odds ratio can give some idea about how much dangerous or how much critical that exposure is for causation of a disease. And that's why most of the times in the case control study, we go for the odds ratio. It gives a figure, and if the disease is relatively rare, only then we can use this particular formula. If it is very common, we cannot go for the odds ratio. We may have to go for the longitudinal study or other methods. Now, to summarize, case control study starts with the cases those who are already having disease. It also uses controls who are not having disease for the comparison. Controls and cases have to be matched for all other variables except the disease and the exposure of the factor which is being tested for. Once we have done that, we should analyze them for the exposure rate and the risk estimation. Once this is done, we will have an idea that this is definitely a relation between the factor which is under the test and the disease. What are the limitations of the case control study? It has several advantages. It is very easy to conduct, but probably the bias may enter. Bias enters at several times. Say it is a systematic error. Bias is known as a systematic error. What we do, that some error when the comparability is not being looked after. Such errors do occur and we need to be guarded against it. We need to be see that it does not happen as far as it is possible. For example, we talked about the confounding factors where we are matching case and control for age or marital status, but somewhere such cases, such controls are not available, and by mistake, some individuals are added to controls and they may not be actually matching, and some confounding factor may actually act for the causation of the disease. So we need to take care of the confounding factor. Two, we are asking the case or the control about the past history. Now, there is always some difficulty in recalling. The memory may not help, or memory may tell something which is not actually there, it's not true. This may be either obvious or non-obvious. We may not be able to identify. That's why there is some role of memory because they are talking about the past and the error may come in. The third one is selection bias. You may select by mistake such individuals who are not actually having that diagnostic category or do not match with the eligible criteria. So if you become to be very precise and accurate, then the errors will be minimized. One error which is quite frequently known as Parkinsonian bias, because some hospitals enter their admission criteria for the hospital is that specific type of the cases will be given admission to at a particular level. Now this itself may become a bias. Such a bias is known as a Parkinsonian bias. This also has to be looked into. And last but not the least, a person who interviews the case or the control may be biased. Once he knows that this is a case and this is a control, he may ask some questions in details and some questions may not be asked in such details. And this is again dangerous. What does it introduce? It introduces bias. What should we be preventing? Bias should be prevented as far as it is possible. But by and large, case control studies are very frequent, very useful, should be conducted as and when the chance permits. But case and control study is not as good as the cohort study as far as the scientific inference is concerned. How? There are several advantages and several disadvantages. Advantages, it is easy because we are selecting case. It is rapid because once the cases are available, we find out the controls for that. And relatively fast we go in the study designing. 3. As the cases are already present in a hospital, this is relatively inexpensive. The cost factor will be minimized or will be less. And we require only suppose the cases are few, 5, 6 cases of a rare cancer or something like that, then the study will be easier. Subjects will be less. But all these things will tackle about that this is good for a rare disease, which is not so frequently occurring. If it is frequent, then we should not go for the case control study. Like frequent like malaria, there is no need of the case control study. Frequent like say corona, there is no need for the case control study. And only say cancers are generally not so common. And in that case, we can go for the case control study. As we are already selecting the cases, there is no further risk. They have already become the case. And controls, because they do not have that particular disease, there is no risk factor. There is no risk factor. You will learn that in cohort there is some risk factor. That case, the person may have the case later on. That will be talked later on. Now, once you start case control study, you have actually started for the tobacco chewing and oral cancer. But it may turn out that there are several other factors also leading to the particular case outcome. Say, oral cancer may happen to be because of the tobacco chewing, but the same person may be smoking also. Or same person may be having some different habit. When you go into the details, you may identify that not only tobacco chewing, but tobacco chewing at a certain extent or for certain length may be responsible. So several things may be identified once you go into the details of those studies. Now, the importance is once you know that this factor has some relevance, some significance, some risk ratio, some odds ratio, which points out to the possibility of its role in the causes of disease, you can start with the prevention and control measures. That's easy. Though it is cheaper, easier, you can start with the action. And once you have selected the cases will not be lost because by the time you study the cases, you will be having some inference. But in case of the cohort, you will be losing some persons because they did not have the disease. Again, that will be kept in mind when we study cohort studies. And when you are already dealing with the cases and not the normal individuals, that is more known as the ethical issues will be limited. Those persons who are having already disease, but still we have to explain the conditions, why we are studying, what we are studying, how we are studying, and then get a consent. That is a must. But ethical issues will be little less because they are already diseased persons. Disadvantages are also there. In the case control, whatever are the advantages, almost this can be explained. If the opposite is there, it is disadvantage. For example, bias will be entered. The persons may not remember it well. So while recalling, they may do some mistake and the ultimate results will be different. One bias is that. There may be selection bias, we talked about that. So selection should be very precise. We need to identify the control factors, which are the control group variables needed and should not have any compromise on it. One disadvantage, it does not give any incidence. That's why we cannot say that it causes it. There is no cause relationship. That's also a limitation of the study. And we can talk about cause or association. We are not very sure about that. We can be sure only by the cohort study, and after all, the case control study is to get some idea. And suppose we want to compare some therapy, some treatment, or some preventive measure which we have taken, we cannot do because we are not going to follow up. Unless you follow up the cases, unless you follow up the controls for a long time, you cannot say that it is useful or it is not useful. These are the limitations. Last but not the least, every time, whenever you select the cases or you select the controls, cases must be representative of the all cases in the universe. I try to explain it. Suppose we are studying the oral cancer. The oral cancer cases which we have taken must be actually representing all cases of oral cancers wherever they are. And that's why the need of the diagnostic criteria to be fixed. Controls must be representative of all those persons who do not have oral cancers. If you do that, then there will not be a bias. To avoid bias is very important in the scientific studies. And you try to remember there is also a small PowerPoint presentation talking about all these formulae. You will go through, and then we shall move to the second part of the studies, cohort studies, which is more scientific but more difficult to conduct. It requires more time, but next time we shall talk about that.